Hey, what's up, friends? This is the Simply Love Jesus podcast. My name is Caleb, and you are listening to part 2 of our episode on lust and love. This comes from our series called Toxic Relationships with God. So if you haven't listened to part 1, do me a favor, pause this, go back, listen to part 1, then listen to this episode. And if you've already listened to part 1, then welcome back. Really excited for us to jump in and continue this conversation. So that being said, let's get right to it. I hope you enjoy the episode. And as always, if you find it challenging or encouraging or just thought-provoking in general, then I would be so encouraged if you would share this with one person. But that being said, enjoy the rest of our conversation on lust and love and its contribution to helping us understand whether we have a toxic relationship with God. Where do we see lust play in the lives of Christians or in our life or whatever? Because lust is usually categorized by like a sexual desire, but lust also is just deeper than that as well. Lust is kind of a byproduct of what we see with greed or envy, or it's a wanting, it's a longing for more. It's an obsession for more. And that's deeper than just greed or envy. It's a longing, it's an unquenchable thirst for something or someone.
Well, I think lust can play out in the fact that the church is always wanting to control, everything that's going on as far as like the congregation and everybody that's like there.
Well, it's kind of like a play in it, but like some churches can be like that. Yeah, because it could be a part of it where you see like lust for numbers, like you're saying, Olivia, where it's. But I would say it wouldn't necessarily be like a church as a whole. It would usually have to be within an individual. So let's say, I would say where this would, using a church as an example, let's say you have a ministry and suddenly you're starting to get traction. You got a lot of people just start showing up. And so what's next? Then you start wanting more, right? You're wanting more. Let's push it more. Let's go faster. Let's go more. Let's get more of it. And you're chasing the thing more than you're chasing the people. We see that in our own individual lives, usually when we're met with unexpected success. You work for something. If you're a musician, you start getting gigs, you start getting to travel, people start wanting your autograph, they want to start taking pictures with you. Then you start, this is a silly example, but it's not necessarily it's not a perfect example, because I wouldn't say it necessarily falls into a lust, but I think that the illustration can kind of apply. So for those who know, I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd. I love being a nerd. And one of the things that I do is I like going to the Renaissance Festival. And if you met me in real life, I'm not like, I'm just a normal person. Like, I'm a normal kind of guy. I'm kind of weird. That's okay. I embrace that about myself. But one of the things is when I've noticed, like, when I'm with, like, my normal friends, like, I can kind of crack some jokes. I'm kind of funny. I'm not, like, people like me, but I'm not, like, the cool guy. I'm not, like, oh, everyone wants to be around Kayla, whatever. Like, I'm not, like, the cool person. I'm not, like, the popular person who's, like, if I'm around you, I feel like I'm being elevated in something. Like, it's not like you're standing next to some big Christian celebrity and all of a sudden you're like, I feel like I'm so important now. Like, nobody gets that feeling around me. But what was so funny was when I was at the Renaissance Festival, so I had this whole outfit inspired by one of my characters in a book series that I'm writing. And the character is named Captain Sillybeard. So I made a whole pirate outfit based off of Captain Sillybeard. And when I showed up to the Renaissance Festival, I was not expecting how popular I quickly became at that place. Staff members, cast members, random people were just like loving the outfit. And the funniest this is the funniest part to me was nothing ever happened, but it was so funny because I was starting to get like hit on by girls. Like, I straight up catched a girl, like, straight up, like, staring at me, like, what's up? Like, I was straight up getting, like, lingers. And I was like, I'm not used to this kind of attention. And it could have easily turned into me just, like, suddenly becoming way more confident and full of myself. I'm like, man, I'm like all that. And that's not what happened. It was more just caught me off guard. But it could easily that's where the I remember there was a temptation. There was a small twinge of temptation where I was like, man, I'm popular. I'm feeling myself. Like, I'm all that. There was a small twinge of that kind of temptation. And that is where that seed of lust begins, where you want the more. It's not enough. You want more than what you already have. And I think that plays into all of our lives as well. And it plays into how we not only treat our relationship with God, but how we treat our relationship with other people. The people aspect is kind of obvious, though, right? I mean, what would you say? Like, we see the people aspect come into play.
And you're speaking from like the lust side of things?
Yeah.
Okay. So
the people side is a little bit more obvious.
Right, right. So like kind of like to piggyback off what you were saying with your story at the Renaissance Fair, like it's easy for us as people, I don't know, for me as well, because I'm kind of a prideful person. Like, I take pride in the things that I do.
Yeah.
So it's really easy for...
Because you're so talented.
Stop. I'm right. Look, I fake humble sometimes, guys. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, no, I'm terrible. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good.
In your head, you're like, I'm pretty good.
I'm pretty decent. Or like, you know, like when you play humble and then like you show the people and they're like, what? I didn't know. I'm like, man, it's just a little something. I don't know. Okay. But I think also is just as people is this lust for greatness, like the lust to be known by everyone possible. You know what I mean? Like when you were talking about lust and you were saying like it's deeper than obvious sexual, the first thing I thought about was Eve. And in the garden, when you know, she says she looked at the fruit and it looked appetizing.
It looked good.
Looked delicious.
It looked good for wisdom. Or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. It's like the lust of the eyes. This is what I'm trying to get at. So it's like we can easily look at something and be consumed by it and be like, I want that. And whether it's good or bad for us, it's like, or we want more of it. And so as people, we want more of the adoration. We want more of the praise. We want more of the applause. We want more of the views, the looks, whatever it is.
Yeah. And,
you know, I've seen that played out a little bit in my life too, especially as I've grown in music over time. You know, I don't look for people to be like, oh my gosh, that was amazing, but I do enjoy it. Yeah. And so like, I'm not going to sit here in line and be like, oh, I hate when people say I was amazing. No. So like, I do enjoy it. And there is a twinge of like wanting more of it and like, you know, or seeking more of it, you know, when you're in an event or something like that and someone comes up to you and is like, oh my gosh, that was really awesome, or that was amazing worship you led. And yeah, this is terrible to say from a worship leader. but it's things that nobody's saying. Exactly. It's things that nobody's saying, but we should be saying. It's the reality. It's the reality of our sinful nature. And listen, I don't take pride in it at all, but I'm just saying, or like, do you? No, I don't. It's terrible. Like I shouldn't be saying this out loud, but I'm calling myself out. So, but I'm just saying, like, that has happened, and God has really humbled me in a lot of ways, and I've had to like physically humble myself and just be like, Olivia, you can't get in that headspace because that can easily grow into something more dangerous. Yeah. And so so sometimes I try to stay low key with my music stuff, like don't tell people outright, but so I think as people, like you were saying, we definitely can be lustful for more greatness, for more, more popularity, like you were talking about.
So Adrian, where do you think that that starts? How do you feel like it goes from this, using this example we're running on here, the moment of getting like adoration, or even if it's like, or the more obvious example for lust would be sexual desire. How do you think it goes from this enjoyable, flattering moment to lust? What do you think? How do you think that the enemy, if you can, I don't know, because I've got an idea, but I want to know what you think first of, like, where do you think the devil takes it and grows it, you know? So in my line of work, when you start realizing that maybe more so that you're actually good at what you do. Yeah. And that if you apply yourself more, then you can be a whole lot better. So with learning disability I have with ADHD is just that
when I figure that out, I zone in and I try to, at that point, whatever it is I have to get done, I will exhaust myself to the point of like I'm completely like burned out because I put because I'm not sometimes in that moment I'm not able to separate myself from what I do because I feel like what I do is what I am. So I go hard on it just like I will go hard on myself, and just with the mentality of like a sniper, and just continuously, if something is wrong, I try to pivot around it or try to get it fixed. And then with being so agitated, I'm not so much at the task at hand, but like, running out of storage or, having limited resources currently to go get something that has a bigger RAM or disk for something that I have to continuously, pivot. But also within that pivot, I see that I kind of glean from like the chaos of it, that I like the chaos of being able to move and everything. And I'm like, I want more of this. And then like, which in all actuality, it's not really good like for me, for my mental and emotional health. I know some people that can sustain that, or publicly may not be saying they can, and they have a therapist, So it's just finding that fine line and just being able to know what, like we talked in last episode, not overreaching and being satisfied what God has provided with us, because it even says in here that the Lord would have gave David more if he had asked of it, but David did not ask of it. So David decided. Or
he tried to get more, but it was within his own hands.
It was within his own hands. This is tying to episode 3.
Rather than if he asked God, God would have provided.
And now he cursed his whole entire family household. So that just shows that what the man of God or the woman of God of that household does is directly funnels through them. But that's another segment we can talk about another time. But still, like, he cursed not only himself but his whole entire family that he probably won't even grow up to get to see, because he wanted to be lustful after a woman, and then it wanted after a woman that wasn't even his in the first place. And after God has given him his master's wives and concubines, and he already had enough to satisfy him of in that sense, in that lust sense of sexual desire. And the idolatry of it was he idolized her. It said he looked upon her and saw that she was beautiful. Yeah. So that's the other part of it. He idolized her beauty and her shape, and her being married to Uriah. He should have been out of love, and this is the good fruit, out of love, which is not so much the surface level of it, but love and respect. So the respect he should have had for Uriah Hittite as a man of God, he should have displayed that and turned away. I mean, like, okay, you saw it, you don't need to keep looking, or you don't need, because the more that you keep looking, your eyes continue to wander, and that's what he did. He continued to keep his eyes glued upon the idolatry that he was seeing of her, and then he idolized his own self as far as, I have the power to get this done.
Yeah. What do you think? Where do you think that what turns into, because I think a better way to define lust is where pleasure becomes unquenchable. That's what I would say lust is. Lust is where pleasure becomes unquenchable.
Yeah.
So hearing that, what do you think the enemy's tactics or our sinful, our me-focused nature? What do you think is the moment that takes it from just a flattering moment to lust? Because I've got an idea. And I heard Adrian's idea. I want to hear your idea. See if where it lines up.
All right, I'm gonna take a stab at it. I think, I don't know, man. I just keep going back to like our sinful nature and our need for more. I don't know what word you would give it, idolatry. I don't know what it is, but it's just like it's the desire to have what we can't. You know what I mean? It's just like, or just the desire for more of it, because us being image bearers, we're the only creation that is made in the image of God. And so we are not God, but in a sense we are like God. We have similarities of God's character, God's traits, but we are not him. But when sin entered the world, we tried to be our own God. And so we try to run things, and we try to rule things, and we try to have dominion over whatever it is. And so, like, for instance, with David's power move, you know, he had the power to do that. You know, he had the power and the authority to do what he want, have who he want, when he want. And I think there's like a twinge of that in every human being. Is like, well, you know, I have the power to make this happen. If I have this feeling, I'm going to satisfy this feeling. If I had, you know, we aren't our emotions, we aren't our feelings, but our sin tells us, well, if you feel that way, do something about it, act on it. You know, even if it's for a second, you know, and you know it's wrong, you know, like, I shouldn't do that. We still have this like inkling in us that's like, well, if you feel that, you feel it for a reason, so act on it, do what you want with it. You know what I mean? So that's like the best way I could kind of explain it.
So to build off of that, I would say, because lust begins when after pleasure. So lust begins after pleasure. It's like you have something, you get a taste of it, and then you want more. So I think where it begins is the whisper in the lives of the enemy comes into play when you've had a taste of something and the lust says, imagine how much better it would feel if you had more. If it felt this good when we did it now you can play. Now we're playing in the relationship game. If it felt this good when we went this far, how much better would it feel if we went further? Like, if I felt this good when people are giving me adoration and acceptance and approval and praise, how much better will it feel if I got more than what I have now? And that's where the seed and the rot begins to take place, and the bad fruit begins to produce, where you start chasing, where pleasure becomes unquenchable. Like that, and when you start chasing it, and it's the reality is you want more, but then you want more, and you can't get enough. And that's where the devil lies to us.
Sorry, I'm just going to add this last thing. So that's why, like, you know, you hear celebrities or people with a lot of status, they're never satisfied with the money they have. They can literally have billions, and they're never satisfied, or they end up committing suicide. You know, like, it goes to show that all of that is in every human being. You know what I mean? Like, even for me, I make $200. I'm like, I wonder what it'd be like make 500. You know what I mean?
Go bougie today.
Literally, I'm like, Target run,
I'm about to tip extra today.
Right. So I'm just like, I'm about to just like throw it out. But it's in all of us, there is that piece of, you know, but what would it feel like if I had more? And you know what I mean? And so, like you were saying, it is a unquenched, like, you know, you cannot quench that thirst, right? You just want more and more and more, and that was what David was after at that point.
And it's the chase for pleasure,
right?
Because it's not even the because you pose the question. I don't think it's not even the question is what would I feel like if I had more. It's not even what would I. It's how much better would I feel if I had more. Because the whole point where lust comes in is you don't have to ask what would it feel like. You already know. You just say how much better than that could I feel if I had more. Now in this scenario. Now that poses, if that's the bad fruit, what's the good fruit?
Well, the good fruit would be on a surface level love, but
why?
But the byproduct of respect.
Respect.
Why? Because love. Because if you true love is also respect and protecting. So just using.
I was like, that's like almost a byproduct of the byproduct.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I'm using love, because that's one of the spiritual fruits, but also taking it deeper, saying it should have been the respect.
Deeper than that. It's not just love. I would say it's if we could agree that lust is when pleasure becomes unquenchable, then love would be why love is the opposite, because true love produces true satisfaction. Love quenches. Lust is unquenchable. Lust is a pit where no matter how much you throw in there, it'll never get full. Love is where you're satisfied. Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. To those who are hungry, you will be filled, or you will be satisfied. Those who are thirsty, you will never thirst again. This is why Jesus tells the woman at the well, you keep drinking of this well, the well of the water that you get with your own hands, you will always be thirsty for more. You drink the water that I give, you'll never be thirsty again. Like, love is where we find true satisfaction. And where do we find that love?
In Jesus.
In Jesus. But why?
Well, because he is the one that can satisfy that, and nothing else can satisfy that.
Why
because
can he satisfy it?
Because he gives us peace beyond any understanding.
But how can he give us peace beyond all understanding?
Simply love Jesus.
Well, yes, yeah, we'll get there eventually, but not there yet. Not there yet. How is he the only one who can give us peace beyond all understanding?
Because he's the one. Because God is the one that created us in His own image. So He's
the one who created us, right?
And He knows our inner workings more than our mom and our parent.
Okay,
our dad
but deeper
does.
than that, how is he the only one who can give us the ultimate satisfaction? Why is it that anything that I try to do will never be enough, and only Jesus can give me enough? Why? What's the difference?
The difference is because God already died for us. So that in itself is enough. So when we
why is it enough?
Because once we start accepting that and living a life that He wants us to live, and one that's not self-centered, is because like that would be fulfilling. Because
in the first place?
Because we stay within ourselves and try to be selfish. So we live a life that's centered around God. We're serving other people. We're going outside of ourselves.
But why are we even self-centered in the first place?
Because of sin.
And who is the only person in all of creation who doesn't sin?
Jesus.
Why is that?
Because He's God.
And what's special about that? Why is that special? Why is that relevant?
Because he's never sinned.
He's never sinned, but why is that?
Because He's perfect.
Okay, but why is He perfect?
Because He is.
Take it back to page 1, verse 1.
Because He created everything.
Boom! If He created everything...
I just say He made us.
Well, He made us, but I want to get like that He created... And if He created us, He's outside of all of it. Yes. He's the only one who can give us satisfaction, because He's the only one who can give us the reality of something that none of us have ever experienced. We are searching and lusting for more because we know there is a perfection out there, but only one person actually has the keys to the perfection. He's the only one who has access because He is the only one who was outside of all of it. So He can provide. That's why the river of life and the waters, that's why He is the only way, the only truth, and the only way to life. Because He is the only one who has tasted, and He is not the only one who's tasted. He is the one who is the source of all things life. Because He is the only one who has the access where the river flows from the throne of God. It's the river of life that flows from God, because He is the source. He is the one who's created all of it. And that is why His expression of all that is good and heavenly, of a heavenly realm, the ultimate expression of that was love. And that is why love is the opposite is the good fruit that is produced instead of lust.
Yeah. And even just to piggyback off of that, with Him being the creator and author of all things, therefore He's the sustainer of all things. So like us as human beings, I always like pray and like, thank you, God, for being the author and my sustainer, because you don't just create me and just be like, I'm done with you now. You created me, and you're like, now I'm about to sustain you through this life through my Son Jesus, through the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And so He's the one that carries us. Like Adrian said, He is the only one that can satisfy, because He knows everything about us. He created. He's outside of time. He's outside of the realm of our lives. So like He's the only one that truly knows what satisfies, and that will be Him. So yeah.
So even like digging into this more, why is it then, if He is the one who's truly satisfies, and He's the one who gives true love, Why is it that sometimes it doesn't feel like he's enough?
Because it's just within our human nature just to want more, to satisfy our flesh.
But if he is truly the one who satisfies, shouldn't it be seeking him be enough? Why is it then that I want more?
Because we take our eyes off of him.
Ooh.
And we put our eyes on other things, whether it be our career we want, or we put our eyes on other things that's not of him.
Why do we do that?
Because a lot of times we just want more, and it's our selfish nature. And
so what you're saying is we're impatient.
Society. Yeah,
we're impatient.
Yeah,
that's why, and that's temptation from what?
Of not being able to wait.
Well, it's a temptation of our selfish nature again.
Yeah.
So there's a thing within us, listeners. That's what I'm trying to get us to all understand. There's a me-focused nature that dominates everything. And when he's not enough, it's because there's a me-focused nature within you that becomes impatient. Because there's a thing within us that wants it. Not only do we want more, but we want more now. We want it right. We want it now. I want it here. I don't want to escape. I don't want to get out of the pleasure. I don't want to get out of the feeling of the euphoria, the ecstasy. I want it to stay. And the only reason that we know that exists, I think the only reason we want more is because we know that there is a place somewhere deep in our DNA. There's something deep encoded within us that knows there is a place where I'll never be unsatisfied. There is a time where I'll never be unsatisfied, and we're trying to find it, but we can only find it in Jesus. So what does it look like to apply? How do we apply love? How do we naturally ensure that we're producing this good fruit instead of the bad fruit?
We just always have to just make sure that we're staying in the Word, and we're just accepting of the fact that God loves us before we love Him. And we have to understand that there's work in us for us to love Him. And also, the more that we dive into His Word and be on the offense instead of the defense, the more that we can be more equipped and be more knowledgeable to love on other people. Because like this theme of everything is getting outside of yourself. So it means like within Christ, you have to get out with outside of yourself.
And how do you get outside of yourself?
By following a life dedicated to Him. And the same thing with like loving other people is that you have to get outside of yourself, because we're so self-centered that once we decide to follow Christ, that we have to die to ourselves. We have to continuously daily carry our own cross, and that means denying ourselves, telling ourselves no to this, no to that. Because I heard one thing, I saw it as your yes is expensive. So counting what it means to say yes to yourself, to your selfish natures, that takes a toll on you, and in a lot of ways possible. And if you start telling yourself no more, the more you have currency over your own life to follow what God has already cashed in for you. So that way you would be able to deposit more back into other people, not from your own cashier drawer, but from the one that is of the Lord's, because you're just a vessel.
So how do we get to that place where we get outside of ourselves, where we're able to choose love over lust? How do you get to that place? What's the barrier to get there? Because it's not easy to just say, well, I'm just going to choose love over lust. You got to have a whole way of, you got to think differently. You got to feel differently. You got to feel differently about the thing that you're debating to be able to respond positively and respond wisely to that thing. So how do I get myself there? Because if I just try to do it myself, it ain't going to work. Yeah. So how do I get there?
I think it starts with surrender. So once you do make that big move, that the greatest decision of your life is to surrender your life to Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. So, but that surrender is daily. So that surrender, like Adrian said, was denying ourselves, dying to ourselves, picking up our cross. And that requires just literally just humbling yourself before the Lord, whether that's a simple prayer of, God, help me to be who you want me to be, you know, or just laying prostrate before on the floor and just saying, like, God, more of you and less of me. May you increase so that I may decrease, like John said. So
how do you get to that?
How do I get to that surrender?
How do you get to that surrender, you know?
I think it's just asking for it. Yeah. Praying and asking for it, seeking God for it.
But some people have been asking it for a while and they haven't got it. There's a mind shift that has to happen.
Yeah.
How do we get them to that mind shift? Anyone?
I mean, it's a power that is outside of ourselves. Yeah. I think it's through the power of the Holy Spirit that our mind does change, through the Word of God, through sharing and being good news. Whether that's you personally audibly sharing the word to me, or me hearing it from someone else, I think that begins gets the wheels turning of the purpose of life. Why am I here? You know, all those things. And it begins to make us question, you know, what is the bigger purpose in all of this? And that will shift how you see life, how you see people, how you see yourself, and how you should treat people in the process of that.
Now, what if I could wrap all of that up for you in one question?
What does it mean to simply love Jesus?
There it is.
Boom, boom, boom.
There it is. But it's serious, though. I always bring it back to that. I laugh about it, but I'll always bring it back to that question because it does wrap it all up in a nice little bow for you.
Yeah.
Because why? You guys have read the book.
Yep.
Why does asking the question get you there? Because what's the first step? What the first step to simply loving Jesus is understanding
that Jesus simply loves you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And why is this? How do we know that Jesus simply loved us?
Because of his price that he paid on the cross for our sins.
Yeah. Because he died and he rose again for us.
Yeah.
All because he loves us.
Yeah.
And when I realized the weight of how much he loved us, the weight of how much it costed.
Right.
What's that song? I'll never know.
Here I am to worship. Yeah.
Yeah. To see my sin upon that cross.
That's oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie. The idea that when I understand how much it cost for him to die for us, the more that I reflect on that is the motivator. Because if I just try to figure out, well, if I just surrender more, if I pray more, if I do this more, you're going to fall short every time. This is why one of the things I love what Jordan Rubin said. Jordan Rubin's our event coordinator for Simply Love Jesus. But we were talking about, early on, we were talking about the book. The book was getting ready to launch, and I asked all of our lead team members, I said, what is it? Why do you like Simply Love Jesus? What is it about it? Like, how would you explain it to somebody else? And Jordan's, I don't remember everything that he said. I have it saved in my phone somewhere. But one of the things I'll never forget that he said that I actually loved so much that I had never worded it this way, but he worded it perfectly. He had said that a lot of churches and a lot of preachers want you to feel like you're not enough. You're not serving enough. You're not giving enough. You're not worshiping enough. But Simply Love Jesus, it changes that mindset and helps you understand that you are enough because he was enough for you. Like, we are not here to tell you that we're not enough. We're here to tell you are enough. We're asking you to just trust in somebody who was enough for you. And that's the difference. Like, we don't shame you. We don't sit here and say, you're not doing this enough. You're not serving enough. You're not loving enough. You're not loving Jesus enough. Like, and there is a degree to which we do communicate it, but not in a way that says you're not enough. We communicate it in a way that helps you understand that, like, no, he already is enough. Will you draw near to him? Will you run to him? He is enough for you. You don't have to be enough. He's enough for you. He loves you enough. You want the love? Tap into his love that never runs dry, his love that never goes empty, his well that never dries up, his water that never leaves you thirsty again. Tap into that love, and out of the overflow of that, when I dive into the Word, that's why the next step to Simply Loving Jesus is understanding that the closer I am to God, the greater my love for people will be. Because the more I dive into that, the more I begin to study his Word and see how good he is. It's going to lead me to loving people out of an overflow of a love for God. And then running through that leads me to my purpose. The more I seek Jesus, the more I need Jesus, which then turns into where it becomes no longer a lust, it becomes a love for God. Because then it's the more that I seek him, the more I need him. It's not even if I just had, and sometimes we even communicate this, sometimes in certain denominations communicate a love for God, and they might want you to have more of a lust for God. Well, if you just had more of God, if you just prayed in tongues more, you just got in your corner, you did this more, you could have more. If you draw nearer to him, he'll draw nearer to you. And they want you to think that if you have this feeling and this supernatural spiritual encounter, if you just do more of that, how much more spiritual would you be? Do you hear some parallels in the way that we talk about it? Whereas the reality is, when I realize that the more I seek Jesus, it's not that if I could have more of him, how much more of him. You already have all of him. The whole purpose is not recognizing how much more of him you could have, but how much more you need him. Because the more aware you are of his holiness, you'll be equally more aware of your selfishness. You'll be equally more aware of how much more you need him. Not much more of him you could have, but how much you need him.
A bit of an interesting topic, just how lusting after God versus loving God.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you could just be lustful, after what Jesus did on the cross for you, and it's like, oh, that is so. And
sorry to interrupt you, but it just like struck like a lightning bolt, just hit me as you were talking. It also speaks into a lot of why is it that. Because I think now that we're having this conversation, I really do believe a lust for God could be a real thing. Because if we're going into that chain of thought of thinking that lust is where pleasure becomes unquenchable, the reality is a lust for God is where you don't actually love God, you just love the things of God. You don't actually want who God is, you just want more of them spiritual encounters. You just want more. How much more spiritual would you feel? How much more happy would you feel if you just have more of those moments? Like a lust for God is where you just want more of the things of God rather than God himself. Sorry, go on. It just hit me.
Nah, no, yeah. that's real good, because like it can be seen as that. It can be shown that, when you do have a lust for God and just the things that he does, that you're just really just chasing after him because of, like you said, his character and what he provides, his nature. Like, he's a provider. So if I know if I continue, I get more of him, do more of this, do more of that, serve my way to the table, or use more of my talents. Like, so it just shows that, even in the sense of the creator, we can lust after his own image, because we are made in his image, and we feel like as we're lusting after him, it's like if I get more of God, maybe I can become like God, or like I
brought that back to Genesis 3, did you?
because isn't that what Adam and Eve thought? But when they grabbed the apple from the tree of knowledge, they thought they become more like God.
The philosopher over here dropping some bombs on us.
Because like. It's that in a sense that we just have that wire in our sinful nature, and that's wired from the Garden of Eden, because that will forever stay in our DNA. That lust, that idea that if we do the things that God has did, or the things that Jesus has did, if we wept like Jesus did, or we go to the Holy Land and live like Jesus did, or something like that, we feel like the more that we do, that we will become closer to him. And that's not how God works. He does call for us to be obedient, because that's out of love for him. That's out of that's out of wanting more. That's out of wanting a relationship with him, not more of him, but just simplistically a relationship with him that you can get more intimate with.
And how do you know if you're living in a loving relationship with God versus a lustful relationship with God? How do you know?
Ooh, I'm not even gonna lie. Like it's a lot of times when you try to reach outside of yourself, because
I would say it's super simple. We could break it down to one passage in the Bible.
Go ahead.
What do you think it's going to be? We're about to break this down to everything that... Technically both.
One passage?
Well, technically 2 verses, 1 passage. But
it's going to be from Garden of Eden, right?
Nope. Breaking it down. Everything that we try to bring everyone back to. What are we trying to bring everyone back to? The same little passage. Simplest thing in the entire Bible.
God for so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
Stop thinking in verses. Thinking just...
Context?
Just the context. It's one thing. Technically 2 things, but it's one thing.
Jesus died for our sins and our transgressions that were not his?
No. Think about it. What's the one thing we're trying to get everyone grounded in our ministry? We're bringing loving God, loving people. Deuteronomy 6:5, Leviticus 19:18, which is the Old Testament. New Testament, Jesus calls it the greatest commandment.
The bestest.
I don't actually know what it is I don't even know where it is in the New Testament. I just know it for the Old Testament reference. That's what he referenced. Like, he referenced those 2 verses, marries them as one greatest commandment, or as in the Simply Love Jesus book, the bestest command. It's the idea of it's about how you know you're in a loving relationship with God versus a lustful relationship with God. Is that balance unbalanced? Is the scales teetering all to God's side but nothing with people? Because if that's the case, you're no better than religious leaders in Judaism days with Jesus. You just people who run in after cannot be more spiritual, but you won't even give $1 to a homeless man. You spend all your time in church working on Sunday and prepping for Sunday service, Sunday morning sermon. But when was the last time you went out of your way to knock on your neighbor's door and see how they were doing? Like, we spend all of our time going to Bible studies and praying and being with Jesus, But when was the last time you sacrificed something of yourself to serve someone who couldn't care less for God? When was the last time someone called you and said, I need help, and you said, I'll be right there? And it was an inconvenience to you. You know, there's a friend of mine who, it was like 11:30 at night. They were up all the way up towards like North Druid Hills area, which for those who don't live in Georgia would be about like 45-minute drive away from me. And they called me at 11:30 at night. They said, my car is broke down on the middle of the interstate and I don't know who to call. And I said, I'll be right there. Got up out of bed, got dressed, drove all the way up there, stood with them, made sure they were all right, helped them make sure they were good, got them back to their place. I could have just ignored it. I could have just said, sorry, I'm too far away. I could have easily said, it was almost an hour drive just to get to him. But I didn't. Why? Because that thought never even ran in my mind. The thought never even crossed my mind. I gotta go all the way out there. First thing I thought was, I didn't even think. I was just getting dressed in the car, already on the way. Wasn't even thinking about it. Why? Because I love Jesus. And because Jesus leads me to love other people so much that I will sacrifice my life so that they could have life. And that's what it means to be in a loving relationship with Jesus. Whereas a lustful relationship with Jesus, it's always just about... Now, granted, I'm not saying that you shouldn't just be loving Jesus. Like there are some people, and it is genuine. There's genuine people who are just like, I just can't get enough of God. Like, that's not bad. But if that is not paired with a love for people, then it is bad. And you got to reevaluate how much you actually love God.
So, Caleb, when was the last time you seen love transform your relationships? True love.
Yeah. It's taking me a while to think because I'm just trying to think. I'm like, okay, when was the time when it didn't? Like, that's what I'm trying to think of. Because like most of most of my relationships with people is just because like I love people. Like I don't care if you cool or not. I don't care if you're popular or not. I just have a love for people, and I just want to be around people. I mean, I would say like even from the simplest to deepest examples, like a simple example is like friends I've met at the Renaissance Festival. People, and it's so sad, but it's like people who would never walk in the doors of a church. They would, and no church people would ever welcome them. That's the hard part, is like no church people would welcome them, and that's what breaks my heart. But because I have such a love for these people, and a love for the friends that I've met, for them to feel accepted, for them to just feel like someone genuinely cares about them, like it just motivates me where I take time and I talk with them and I hang out with them and I spend time with them, I laugh with them. And then as time goes on, I pray that God would allow my example in their life and my sacrifice so that they could have life, my sacrifice that they could be okay and care for them, that would lead them to want to say, what do you have that I don't have? And that's when I can witness to them. But even in the deepest examples, whether it's in my Christian friendships, friends of mine who I just have deep care and love for, even in the times where I've had to rebuke my friends, that has drawn us closer because they know that even if I say hard things, it's because I do genuinely, deeply care. And they were drawn to that. Like my students, I have countless examples from my students when I was a youth pastor of just, I loved them deeply, and I was hard on them and I would rebuke them, but I loved them fiercely. I was there for them. I was there at their vocal recitals, at every little football game that I could be at. I was at every little thing, but then I would disciple them and show them, and I would open their world up to of realizing how much God could work through them. So I would take them into the streets and pray for people and unlock a whole new world for them where they realize, man, God can work through me. And I would take them and help them unlock all these things that are already in them, but nobody decided to take a chance and give them a step of bravery. Just let them kick them out the door a little bit. So I mean, for me, it's like every example. But so I had to think a while. I'd have to think a while about it, a specific one. But I can definitely see a very clear difference when it's a relationship motivated by love versus whatever else.
So what about you, Olivia?
Don't say Adrian. That's cheating.
Okay. So I would say for me, I'm kind of the same with Caleb, but a specific example was definitely at my old church when I served in the youth ministry there as well. I wasn't a youth pastor, but I just served as a small group leader for the high school girls. And similar to Caleb's story was just me being able to, I don't know, I love those girls. I still do love them to this day, but just being able to pour into them through the word, through prayer, through coming and just to hang out with them at their volleyball games, soccer games, all that kind of stuff. And then also just in my family too, like there's been a lot of situations going on with my immediate family, my brother, my sister, and stuff like that. And so God has really, showered his love on me so that I'm able to love them better. And I'm able to see them the way God sees them, and therefore I'm able to serve them the way God would desire me to serve them, whether that's through prayer, whether that's through, here's $50, here's $20, like tangible things that I can do. And that's all because of the love of God, because if it was up to Olivia, I would just do my own thing. You worry about you, I'll worry about me. You put yourself in whatever situation you're in, you got to get yourself out. Whereas the love of God says, like, do what you can to love and serve them and show them my love, because I don't think they fully know it. I don't think they fully get or grasp how much they're loved by me. Yeah. So you be that.
That's good.
I think for me, just personally, how it's shown up in my life is how I just typically just love the people that, I work with, no matter how much frustration that I get, because we're all human, and human errors that we make. That same grace that you extended them is the same that's been extended to you. And also there's times when I get out of a situation, I can think of that was me sometimes, you know, being that irate customer, you know, with the cashier and stuff like that. So having worked in retail allows me to know that at certain points, I'm human, that I hopefully not, you know, but I will eventually like be that person I will be that customer, you know, on the other end that's, you know, a little bit bougie or particular about something, and it comes across very bashful or very rude, and a lot of times I try to do my best not to be that person, but when I am that person, if I have a time to apologize, I do my best to, or I just repent for it and just try to do better.
That's good.
All right, so people, this is really, if you've gotten this far, it's going to be a 2-part series, and I just want to thank Olivia and as music director, and I want to just thank our bro Caleb for hopping on with us and just allowing us to be on this journey with him. And for all of the followers and listeners out there, thank you for listening and supporting us over the years. And for those who are new, just hey, welcome. Let us know how we can pray for you, and you know, you can support us by going to Simply Love Jesus, and if you want to partner with us, give what's in your heart. So people, y'all can follow us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SLJ Ministries. And also we just like to get everybody's closing remarks.
Any closing thoughts?
Thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed it. This discussion time, going deep, getting into some real deep ideas. And I hope that everyone who listened, I hope that you were able to learn and grow from this, and just even inspect your own life as we go through the story of David and Bathsheba. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I've had a great time with y'all.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back soon. And just closing remark from me, people, as you listen to this episode, make sure you're applying what we're talking about. We've been in this series called Toxic Relationship with God, and I just want to encourage you to apply these things. So, for example, in this episode, the bad fruit was lust, the good fruit was love. How do you apply love to your life in this context? How do you apply love over lust? I would encourage, and it's the same answer for me every single time, so spoiler alert, but it starts with asking a question. What does it mean to simply love Jesus? Ask it out loud. Pray it out loud. Write it down 100 times if you need to. But I promise you, ask that question, it will begin to shift your mindset, shift the way that you think. And if you want to dive deeper on what that answer to that question is, then you can buy the Simply Love Jesus book. Or if money's a problem, you just DM me. I'll send you a free one. But don't tell everyone that, because I don't want a bunch of, don't want to be out of money a little bit. But seriously, like, ask that question. What does it mean to simply love Jesus? Let God's love for you influence your love for him and overflow his love out of you and onto the world. That's what my desire for you is, and that's what I hope that you'll apply that today. Love people. Don't lust after things. Love God. Don't lust after the things of God. Be the kind of person who's going to choose to recognize and be aware of the tactics of the enemy that wants you to begin to believe and think to yourself, how much better would I feel if I had more? How much better would it be if I had? Don't think that to yourself. It's good to enjoy things. It's good to desire things. God made us that way, to desire things, but don't let it turn into lust. It will snatch you and lead you down a path of destruction and lead you down a path that you'll regret. And God wants to save you from that. And so, love, don't lust.
Hey, man, we could put a pin in that. All right, people, let us know how we can pray for you. All right, peace.